Hey guys, in this video we're going to be talking about transformations, so let's get right into it. Before we talk about transformations, we need to know what parent functions are. So these are your three parent functions, and pretty much you're going to be comparing all your graphs to these parent functions. So first I'm going to start off with one of them, and then throughout the video I'm going to be transitioning into the other ones. So the first type of transformation we're going to go over is when you are going to go left or right. So this is going to occur inside the parentheses. So when I say inside the parentheses, that could either be inside the absolute value, inside the square root, or inside the parentheses for this one. So I'm going to give you an example. Y equals x minus 2 squared. Notice how this negative 2 occurs inside the parentheses. When you go inside the parentheses, you need to think opposite. Normally when we think minus, we think going left. However, when you see a minus inside, you are going to be going right. And then 2 units, since it was minus 2. Now if we do the opposite, y equals x plus 2 squared, that's just going to be doing the opposite. It's going to be left 2 units. So just to recap, inside the parentheses determines whether or not you are going left or whether or not you are going right. So now let's look at when we have to go up or down. So for up or down, let's write that. Up or down happens outside the parentheses. For example, when I say outside the parentheses, that means that there are no parentheses in the problem, or it's actually occurring on the outside. So if we look at y equals x squared plus 2, notice how there are no parentheses, which means this plus 2 is on the outside. So if we see a plus 2, we think normally. If we're thinking normally, that means we're going to go up 2 units. And if we see y equals x squared minus 2, we go down 2 units. So once again, if you're outside the parentheses, you're going up and down. If you're inside the parentheses, going left or right. So now let's put it together. When I put it together for this one, I'm going to use the absolute value parent function. So let's say we have y equals absolute value of x minus 3 plus 4. Since this minus 3 is inside our absolute value, that means we're going left or right. I see a minus, need to think opposite. This is going to be right 3. And because the plus 4 is on the outside, it's going to be up 4. So if you want to go left or right, it is inside, up or down is on the outside. So now let's look at what if the number in front is different. So I'm going to give you two cases. Y equals 3x squared and y equals 1/2 x squared. In this case, we say the number in front is our a value. If our a is greater than 1, we get this case, which I'm going to go over in a second. If your a is in between 0 and 1, you are going to get this case. So in this problem, our a is 1/2, that's in between 0 and 1. So if it's greater than 1, we say that it is going to get narrower. The mathematical term for this is a vertical stretch. If our a value is in between 0 and 1, we say that it gets wider or a vertical compression. So those are the two different cases that is going to affect your a value. The last type of transformation, I'm going to change this one just a little bit, is if we have a negative in front. So let's say I have a negative here. It's still going to be a vertical stretch because of that 3, but the negative is going to cause something else. The negative is going to cause a reflection over the x-axis. So once you see a negative, no matter what, it's going to be a reflection over the x-axis, and then you deal with the a term. So now I'm going to put everything together so we can do it. So when I put it together, I'm going to use the parent function of square root. So let's say I have y equals negative 1/4 square root x plus 2 under the radical, and then outside it's minus 5. So I'm going to start with the very front. I see a negative out in front. That's going to cause a reflection over the x-axis. I now see a 1/4 that's between 0 and 1, so that's going to cause my graph to become wider. I then see a plus 2, but that's under the radical, or we could say inside the parentheses. So that's going to be left or right. Since it's plus, I need to think opposite, left 2. And lastly, that minus 5 is on the outside, so that's going to be down 5. And those are all the different transformations.